Redefine Properties has increased distributable income in the first half by 6.1% and declared a dividend of 20.2 cents per share. The group owns retail, industrial, office, logistics and self-storage space in South Africa and Poland. At the end of February, its property assets under management were valued at 100.4 billion rand. Looking ahead, the firm expects full year 2024 distributable income of between 48 and 52 cents per share. Eastern Platinum is back in the black. The miner has posted net income attributable to shareholders of $13.8 million. That's from a restated loss of $900,000 previously. The increase is as a result of a significant rise in third-party chrome concentrate sales in the period. This helped support a revenue jump to a record $106.9 million. Calgro M3 expects headline earnings for the full year to rise as much as 27.7%. The diversified property developer says this reflects significant growth in its Memorial Park segment. The firm will open its books on the 13th of May. Redefine has achieved a significant milestone and is successfully producing liquid helium at its Virginia gas project. The firm previously stated that it would produce 300 kilograms of liquid helium a day by 2021. That was then shifted to July 2022 and again to late 2023. And private sector activity picked up in April. The S&P Global South Africa Purchasing Managers Index rose to 50.3. That's from 48.4. Business sentiment was boosted by a drop in rolling power cuts during the month and a softer reduction in new orders. Further afield, Qantas Airways has agreed to pay $79 million to settle a regulator lawsuit over the sale of thousands of tickets on already cancelled flights in an attempt to end a reputational crisis that has engulfed the airline. Here's more detail in this package report.
Australian airline Qantas Airways said on Monday it had agreed to pay a penalty worth $79 million to settle a lawsuit. The claim accused the airline giant of illegally selling thousands of tickets for flights that had already been cancelled. The fine is the largest ever faced by an Australian airline. As part of the settlement with Australia's Consumer Commission, the company will split $13 million between more than 86,000 customers who booked tickets on the so-called ghost flights and pay a $66 million fine instead of defending the lawsuit that it had previously vowed to fight. The penalty is subject to the approval of the Federal Court of Australia. CEO Vanessa Hudson said in a statement that, quote, "We recognise Qantas let down customers and fell short of our own standards." Qantas was sued last August by the Consumer Commission, which alleged that in some cases the airline's flights were on sale for weeks after they'd been cancelled. The company had argued that it faced similar challenges to airlines around the world, but the Commission said its actions broke consumer law. Qantas is also still waiting to learn how much it must pay nearly 1,700 ground handling staff it sacked in 2020 after a court found the job cuts were illegal, since they were intended to stop industrial action.
And Chinese President Xi Jinping landed in Europe for his first visit in years, heading for France, Serbia and Hungary, but not Brussels. Let's head over to our reporter Darling Lechela for a closer look at those EU-China relations. Darling.
Well, Zinati, it's another chapter in the ongoing trade spat between the EU and China. The European Commission has opened yet another investigation into China, this time with regards to the country's procurement of medical devices. And joining me with further insight is Lars Halter from Deutsche Welle. Lars, thanks so much for joining us today. Now, as we get started, what can you tell us about this latest investigation?
Thanks for having me. Yes, the European Commission is at it again. They've launched this probe into Chinese public procurement of medical devices last week, and it is the first investigation under the EU International Procurement Instrument. Now, that instrument aims to prevent countries from unfairly favoring domestic suppliers. That is something we've seen for years, that China doesn't grant fair market access to foreign companies, meaning that foreign, like EU businesses, are allowed to produce and sell products in China, but that they are often overlooked, for example, in government contracts, which is exactly what we're dealing with here. The EU says that the investigation is supposed to be concluded within 9 months, and if the Commission finds that European suppliers don't have fair market access, then it could place restrictions on Chinese medical device companies bidding in EU public tenders.
Now, we've seen this kind of tit-for-tat trade politics before, haven't we?
Yeah, certainly. We're seeing this all the time now. Another example is the problem with illegal subsidies. Beijing pays generous subsidies to their industry so that Chinese companies can sell products way cheaper than companies from other countries. The EU regularly reacts to these kinds of shenanigans with import tariffs, with China threatening counter tariffs. So that's the game, it seems, these days. And here's the latest example on the subsidies front, by the way. We're talking about wind turbines, specifically for wind park developments in Spain, Greece, France, Romania and Bulgaria. The EU says that 2 Chinese bidders have benefited excessively from subsidies in their offers for a wind power park in Romania, meaning their products were bought due to their lower price tag, which in turn, of course, was only possible due to financial aid from Beijing.
And how is China reacting to all of these investigations, Lars?
They're upset, at least that's the official word out of Beijing. With regards to these wind turbines, for example, China says that the probe is discriminatory against Chinese enterprises and that it endorses protectionism on Brussels' side, mind you, which is, of course, kind of rich because it seems pretty clear that if there is any protectionism, it's on the Chinese side, as I mentioned earlier, with regards to those medical devices that the government there preferably buys from its own companies while excluding foreign competitors. And there's plenty of examples for how China subsidizes its industry. The most prominent example, of course, recently being the EV industry. Chinese automakers like BYD are benefiting handsomely from state funding, and they're dumping cars on markets in the EU at prices that domestic companies can't offer. So the EU is not engaging in protectionism, but it's fighting unfair market practices.
Let's leave it there. Always appreciate your insights. So that was DW correspondent Lars Halter.